Best couple of the year. Our Judy and our Dalton, you really do beautiful music together, and that was truly an inspiring song to listen to at this time of year. So thank you for the hearts you put into that, all that you do. We are blessed, right? We are really blessed. So, good morning. Let me just see who's here, and let me write it on my list. Yeah, I see Stacy here. Yeah, Stacy's been going through a profound healing, and let's just applaud divine grace for flowing through her. Yeah. Pretty much when you're faced with challenges and you just surrender, right, to love and to healing power and to just know I'm walking this journey and something greater is unfolding, and you certainly are a demonstration of that. So thank you for sharing your morning with us. And I'm a new grandma today. We'll be introducing, I'm trying to get the kids to bring the children up here to meet the babies in January, so I'll bring them into a service and just really, like, no matter what else you want to talk about, I'm just going to keep bringing it back to this little guy's Jackson Edward Boyd, and my other is Corey Marshall. And so we just want to bring these children in, and Reverend Andrea has a new baby, so we're going to drag that one up into the group. And if you have babies and you want to show them off, let's just let it go and have a baby service. So look forward to that. So yeah, they bring such joy. So I'm here to share. The topic sounds a little bit like there's so many directions to take. This idea of conflict resolution and there's so much power in the journey of that and in the knowing, and sometimes we feel so small when faced with that idea. And may I be the one to bring peace and a knowing to the situation that is before me. And yes, we're all being called. We're all being called into a space of making a difference and making change, because what first and foremost is unconditional love, an awareness, an opening your attention to loving something greater than yourself in a way that embraces the whole world and pure consciousness. So it's big. And how does it happen? As Damien so beautifully expressed, it is about you being the change, you being the one, not waiting another breath for the world to shift. I remember when I was 18, 19, and I was reading the Holy Science from Sri Yukteswarji from the Self-Realization Fellowship teaching. He was a guru, a master teacher of Paramahansa Yogananda, and I remember thinking, boy, they talk about these time periods of great darkness, of great challenge, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm glad we don't live in a time like that. That was when I was 18. Now I'm 68, and I'm going, oh, maybe this is the end of it, I hope, or is it the beginning? But it is what it is. And so we're being called forth. We're being called forth as the light of the truth, as the light of the way. We're being called forth by the teachers of our time, beautiful teachers, the Dalai Lama and his way of kindness. It's the invitation to be that kindness. So in the Tao, in the scripture of the Tao, I start to share a story with you from Bill Martin when he talks about anger. There's no one to blame. There's no one to blame, really. And you're going to say, well, no, wait a minute. Yes, there is. Well, in your story, when we frame it with just so many characters, it might feel like we could point a few fingers. But in the big picture, in the pure consciousness of all there is, everything is a divine appointment. Everything is an opportunity. May I look deeper into the divine knowing to find my way, to be the one that makes the change, to listen to my heart, to keep my heart open and not constrict. So the story of anger, no one to blame. A young African doctor sat in the hospital ward by the bed of a teenaged woman who was suffering from AIDS. He was curious because the woman seemed, in the past few days, to transform from an angry, depressed, withdrawn patient into a smiling, laughing, and talkative young person. And so he asked her, "What has happened to you? You seem a different person than the one who came first to this hospital." So she told him the story. "When I first came here, I was visited each day by a volunteer, and she was a nice person, but she was so very angry. She talked about the uncaring drug companies who would not supply the medicine I need. She complained about the way the government misused money. She hated the man who gave this disease to me, even though he was my husband, whom I loved. After a few days, I began to feel that my life was one big, huge mistake. I felt that all I should have experienced had been taken from me. The same anger that was in her now stirred in me. I began to hate my late husband. Everything in my life was wrong, the disease in my body, the choices I had made, and the action of everyone around me, and there was no way to make it right. For a month, I lived with ever-increasing anger and despair. Then one morning, a few weeks ago, a new volunteer began to visit me. There was no anger in her at all. She didn't talk much, but she seemed so interested in me that I began to pour all my anger out to her. And as I did, all she ever said was, "I'm so sorry, dear." She said this in the most kindest voice that you could ever imagine. She never blamed anyone for what was happening. She listened to me and talked with me about my life, about my home and the animals I loved. She laughed at my stories of my little brother and his pet rabbit. She marveled at the beauty of the countryside as we walked outside together. She did not blame me or my husband or anyone. She loved me just as I am, sick. She left a few days ago, but now I'm happy. I know that my life has not been a mistake. I'm not a mistake. I'd like to live longer. I probably won't. But that is always the case for everyone, isn't it? Everyone wants to live longer. But everyone has to die. There's no one to blame. I'm happy. This Tao mind, this great mind, always inviting us to smile. To smile, to take a little bit longer in whatever story you find yourself in, and to live a greater truth. To find a way, your divine way, to connect with what is spoken to these days as the divine pure consciousness of all that there is. As Mary was sharing the beautiful prayer to stir inside of us, to awaken us in our seat, to say, what do I call the name? What is the name of the nameless one? Is it the Tao? Is it the Father? Is it the Mother? Is it the Beloved One? Is it consciousness? Is it nature? What is mine? What turns my heart to the divine knowing, to that one? And so that is your private journey, that is your private dialogue with the divine, to know that. But the constant invitation is to be the change. Ernest Holmes even says in his writing, change is always taking place within that which is changeless. Change is merely the play of life upon itself. So I invite you first to ask yourself, how do you handle change? And if it's in relation to any discord in your life, when it comes into your experience, how do you handle it when it's uninvited? You know, we're so comfortable. We want to practice our holidays with the same traditions. And then I remember how uncomfortable I was when I always had the same kind of Christmas tree I was always brought up with, and now they're bringing like these different fir names, and I'm thinking, that's not a Christmas tree, that's a forest tree. That's not a Christmas tree. And it's just like warps my whole thing. But now I'm like, now I'm picking that one. I want that one. I want that one. I want change. I want to change it up in the easy ways so that I can handle when I have to master the challenges and the changes that are not quite so easy to shift into. So how do you handle it when it comes into your experience? Think about it, uninvited. And when we're up here sharing stories with you, the invitation is that we really are one, and we want to feel. And as I share the story, what are you feeling? Where is the story taking you? That which provokes you. What is it that is naming a conflict inside of you? Because with that, there's the truth that it's bearing a gift. It's holding a gift, and it's offering you an opportunity. And that can be both annoying to hear. Oh, there's such a gift in that for you as you're suffering. That's not the way you want to hear it. It's not until sometimes many years later that you recognize the gift. But there's a place where you can anchor your faith to know that a gift is unfolding here. That there's something good unfolding here. I have not seen it yet because I'm still cursing it. But there's going to be a gift. It's like the pony and the poop. There's got to be a pony in here somewhere. You know, it's how you're going to look at it. You're going to be like the volunteer that complained and shamed everything that was trying to help, or be the one that just simply listens and accepts what is and draws you into conversations so that you can then again connect with that pure consciousness that Deepak Chopra speaks of, and he's doing the meditations this last month on empowering yourself into this pure consciousness, this place where it has been untainted by the stubbornness and the obstacles of fear, grief, or blame. So how do you handle these opportunities? How do you look at the empowerment? What does it mean to be empowered in the self? Using the soft power of Deepak, he speaks of it. You look from within to recognize the many choices that you face moment by moment. You can smile, you can curse, moment by moment. You're always offered that choice. Choices as we follow our habits, we follow our routines, we follow consciousness itself as we live. Oftentimes, we're living from the outside in and judging everything that comes our way from the outside in. Oh, there's that again, and now I'm irritated. Or I may take a pause because I'm feeling, as I look upon that, or I hear that, or do I resonate with that, or is that closing me down? Am I getting angry? Am I shutting down when I want to be open up into a state of grace and gratitude? So every moment is a spiritual practice, the centering, asking ourselves the invitation, may I sit in the calm awareness of pure consciousness. And just kind of allow your body to shift that. Even as I speak, you know, there's these moments you'll see me, and I think sometimes as yoga describes them as kriyas, as cleansings, you'll see yourself just kind of twitch and move and say, yeah, I got a little bit of a stiff neck. That's my Aunt Norma. You know, it's like, no, it's like I just got to move that through. I want to keep the grace flowing through me. So you look at the body as a geography of the rivers of experience and emotions, and places where it seems like super glue has just stuck something to your soul. And you're trying to find the ingredient that will wedge that away. That ingredient is called forgiveness. And when you can practice that level of deep abiding forgiveness, you're set free. It just simply is the healing moment of freedom. So there's aspects of this pure consciousness that Deepak spoke of this week in his meditations, and I bring them to us today to, if you've been listening to the meditations, here it is again to remind yourself of pure consciousness. It is, first of all, awareness itself, just being aware. You can change. We can only change what we are aware of. So you see right there, anything that has you a little bit on the touchy side, at least you're aware of it. At least you're aware of it and you can do something with it. No one's coming up behind you and putting a sticky note on your back and you're walking around, I am a big grouch, walking around without yourself knowing it. At least you're aware of it. You got it on your face, big sticky note, I'm a grouch today. It's, be aware. What is it that is taking place? So when you're at the dinner tables, when you're invited into community, you can relax and take in as much as you can. Watch the moments that you resist. Oh, here we go with that story again. Or let me see if they're going to change it at all. Can I hear something different in this story I've heard for 68 years? You know, it's like everything is your teacher to the higher self as you strengthen yourself to open up, to say, how do I want to be set free? Because we all have to let go. We're all invited to relax with what is and to let go of what has been. We have been weakened in our soul spirit oftentimes by our habits, by our prejudiceness, by our fixed expectations, that's a big one, by our secondhand beliefs and by our narrow-mindedness and our sense of just needing to be conforming to the ideas of others. Why? I need to fit in here just to get along, just to hold peace. Maybe you just need to be quiet, but you don't have to conform to the other's belief. If you don't like beets, you don't have to eat them at the table. You don't have to conform to that, but they're very good for you. My Uncle Harold used to say they put hair on your chest, and so I'd eat them up. It wasn't until I got, why would I want hair on my chest? You know, I quit eating them. And it's like, you know, this is the weird things that we try to conform to be pleasant at the table to others, but you can quietly bless the bless the beet and pass it on. And not have to feel like I'm not good enough if I don't eat the beet. So look at the moments where narrow-mindedness has just shrunk your pathway of this pure conscious state. You can feel the moments it happens. And we use the kriyas, the moments, to just shift out of that and to stretch taller into our full potentiality, into our full beingness, and in this exhilarating state of being. It's a state of just pure awe and grace filling the body. So that first idea, the first thing we want to look at is the awareness, and we're recognizing what can kind of shift that awareness is when chaos happens, and then we're all over the place. So then we have to focus. Attention is the other ingredient here. We have awareness and then attention. And attention becomes the focused awareness to increase our power of knowing. It changes the situation as you pay attention to the creative flow. And this creative flow of divine potentiality and energy that is ever present, flowing through each and every one of us as human beings, as sacred beings, we recognize that it is weakened by those moments that we're distracted by worry, by doubt, by being confused on our purpose for even being at that table, and then multitasking or distracting ourselves a multitude of ways so we don't have to pay attention to what's about to occur. We can let that go. So we have this awareness and this attention. And then Deepak reminds us now is the time to pay attention to the alignment phase of your beingness. This is the path of less effort. This is the path of divine nature, always finding its source to find its way back. Every river finds its way back to the ocean from the path of least resistance. And so there's an effectiveness here as we talk about this path of least resistance, demonstrated at first by Mother Nature. And it feels natural when you just align with it, when you let go of fighting and questioning and doubting and fearing and being angry, but saying, I just am in this now. I am in this now. What's my way out? And you align with the truth. And any kind of blocked energy or worry or struggle, and too much overthinking it, as I look at Charlie, as we overthink things. Sometimes it just happens. We have a plan and then we start to overthink, but what if? And then we can kind of get in a little chaos. Then we have to line ourselves back. Like, what is the heart calling us to do? And then the final act is just allowing, just not doing, no interference, just allowing. No stress. We're not going two directions at once. It's not ego-driven. We're just on the path. We have allowed our awareness to draw our attention into alignment, and now we're just allowing. We're not driven by ego. We're moving in one direction, and it's all positive. It's all moving. Now, this allowing can be weakened by, and this is Deepak's wisdom to us, by trying to be right. I knew I'd fit it in. If we want to be right, if we're trying to force our opinion, if we're not listening, we're blocking energy. If we're being too sensitive, ourselves personally too sensitive to even allow the universal need to be heard and listened to and valued and feel worthy in the presence of another, a two-way mirror for each other. Am I even listening to you as you go off in this direction? Or have I just blocked you out, closed you out? These times are testing us here in every opportunity. So you look at your field of experience, you look at your perceptions that you have built up, and you look at the discord that might have been created from that, and you say, I must be the change here. I must be the catalyst for change. I must be the one to allow love and compassion to flow into the conversation here. And maybe it's not by a word that you say, but it's a breath that you take and a softening as you move what I know as the spiritual warrior, as you take that idea of holding on to that soft power and just softening yourself into a grace that knows it doesn't even have to speak its word, but it's a power that holds to its own truth, and we all stand in the spiritual warrior nature of our true divine self. So when you're activated, wake up. When you're activated, pause and deeply listen. What am I feeling? What's happening to me right now? What am I going to find and discover in myself as I take this awkward moment and turn it into a spiritual lesson of greater truth? What am I going to choose to live in total empowerment, or am I going to allow myself to get so disappointed and walk away and pout? What am I going to do with these moments? Because conflict will occur, conflict will arise at different times, different moments, most unexpected. And those are the times we need to be spiritually prepared, spiritually standing and turning to the spiritual warrior heart and saying, I use and allow the soft power within me to stake claim on a greater idea that's unfolding here. So where's your attention? Where's your alignment? What are you going to allow to happen? The spiritual life is calling for us, this generosity of spirit. This generosity of spirit and to love consciously. It's so darn tempting and seems like you're so much more interesting when you get caught into the gossip. When you get caught in the storyline and you feel like, I got something clever to say here. This is going to be a real showstopper when I punch this one out. Or you just realize, how do I want this to go? Do I want to stay true to my divine self? Do I want to stay true to this preciousness? Ernest Holmes says, we are here to know that passing events cannot hinder the onward march of the soul. The temporal imperfection of the human cannot dim the eternal integrity of the divine. Powerful wisdom to plant that seed, to watch it root deeply into our soul, into our consciousness. And so here we go. We don't give up. We don't blame, and we don't settle on self-pity in that moment because we'll be a little more interesting if everybody's looking at us. We don't shut down, and we don't avoid the anger. If anger comes up, we realize, here that is. Am I about to repeat an old pattern and behavior? Am I going to start an argument right now? Or am I going to be gentle with myself, like a newborn baby child, and be gentle? Am I going to make a conscious choice based on my true self and be true to that? Or am I going to start up a power struggle here? There's no need. When you act in this true nature that you are giving up to the will of another, you're simply giving yourself up to the will of the divine, to stay in a place of kindness and flow and forgiveness and truth. So you make the healthy choice. This is what Gandhi calls soul force, which when I first heard that term in my 20s, it's been guiding me, and I've been watching that soul force of all the things that we entertain ourselves and get snaggled into. So you look at your grief, you look at your experience, you look at outrage, you look at your sadness, you look at your losses and your pain. because they're real, because they happened. But you don't try to suppress it in order to create false peace. There's a deeper calling here, a deeper process where the grief, any betrayal is suddenly honored. Think about it, it's honored by a listening heart, that you are the most worthy one to have your heart listened to by yourself and another. You will be received and transformed, just as the sweet patient that had the AIDS was transformed in just a few weeks of time when she decided to listen to love rather than blame. She was able to let go, repeatedly letting go, letting go, letting go, trying to see more wisely what's going on. So you can say, never again will I allow these things to happen. Never again will I permit this harm again to myself or to another. Never again. Henry Longfellow says, if we could read the secret history of our enemies, we should see sorrow and suffering enough to disarm all hostility. So the invitation here, as you look at conflict resolution for you personally, when you enter a space of time where something might not resonate with you and sing your heart song, what you realize, well, something's now suddenly corrupting my sense of peace. How can you transform that obstacle? How can you change that sense of hate or dislike before it hardens, and recognize that hate always hardens our soul and heart, and fear always contracts us and makes us feel lost and miserable. So this idea of tending to this woundedness is something that Thiel speaks of in his book, and I wanted to just read this simple paragraph that he shares. And I think it's just really powerful. Whether a wounding is the result of unresolved conflict or the infliction of an injury, one thing overall others fuels resistance to healing when the ego takes it personally. If any hurtful experience, something is said or done that is perceived as harmful, hateful, or injurious, there is an unpleasant, cruel, or painful incident to be sure. However, the ego will go one step further by arriving at a powerfully debilitating, that's a big difference there. The ego will come into a debilitating conclusion. The ego proclaims to itself, I have been diminished. I have been lessened because of this experience. Well, long after restitution and repairs have been made to address or readdress the original harm or injury, the tendency of the ego is to continue to foster the sense of diminishment. It is then that resentment and bitterness become the only recourse for the ego that believes it has been belittled. The strategy from this point on is to continually increase the intensity of that resentment in a way to try to lessen your pain, but it never works. All that's left is an ego that is accustomed itself to carrying an immense burden of relentless pain and fear. Yuck. That's out of his book of joy, but I got through that, I was going, yuck. It's sobering. It's like holding everything like a tight fist. I will not let this happen again. I will not let this happen again. And then when you say, I'm going to allow forgiveness to flow through me, this fist softens, and maybe it just stays in a contracted state for a while, but pretty soon it's open, it's free, and it just is able to touch your own heart with a softness and a kindness that transforms you forevermore. That's the idea behind this idea of the penetrating suffering, that when we lock into our conclusions and allow the ego to be the one that's running the show, we have to be willing, finally, in the wisdom of Thiel, he speaks of being willing to allow any of the toxins of our resentment that has poisoned our state of being, to allow a pure intention to let it get unstuck and not to have to be the righteous one here, but to be the humble one. It was described as the moments we can allow the carousel, when they used to have the slides, and they used to put the little picture in each one of the carousels, and that would just go round and round and round. But sometimes a picture would get stuck. But we want that carousel to just keep going around. It was an experience, and we've taken our lesson and we've moved on. So this willingness, and then this wisdom at a soul level, a wisdom that can take you into an area where you can use the experience. Now, I am choosing to evolve, to grow, to spread my wings. And then recognizing within every story that is within you, there's the emotional field that is coalesced around everything that has happened. And in that same field is a field of potentiality. And in that same field is a potential of your pure soul. And in that field is a potential and a knowing of the absolute truth, and that's what we call grace. It's an opportunity when you look at the disguise that conflict has put before you, that you're suddenly faced with the opportunity for forgiveness. And you quietly say, the God in me can let it be. The God in me can let it be. Can you imagine at the grace? Who would like to say the grace at the table of the day? I will. May the God in me let it be. And everybody will say, what? Oh, excuse me, I'm tending to my pure consciousness before anybody else speaks. So can the God in me can let it be. And I surrender to that great power of knowing, to that great truth. And one final quote, and I'll have Judy come up and do her beautiful music. This from Rick Hansen. I love his work, and he's on internet. He says, as a human being like any other, your biological vulnerability to learned helplessness makes it very important that you recognize where you do, in fact, have some power, and that you take the actions that are available to you. Well, that's awesome news. Something is available to you. It's called love. And it's called forgiveness, and it's spoken to in the Ho'oponopono prayer. And I share with you what those words mean. For those of you that don't know about the Ho'oponopono prayer, you can look that up. But you're going to go home and go, H-O-P-P-P-O-N-O, how do I spell that? I left some handouts on the back on this, but when you do, there's phrases that you say softly to yourself. I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you, I love you. That's the phrases. That's a Ho'oponopono prayer. That's the chant. I knew that. I'd known that for many years, but I didn't know what it all really exactly meant until I picked up this beautiful book that describes it, the Book of Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian practice of forgiveness and healing. So what does it mean? I'm sorry is acknowledged that I have created whatever pain I've caused or errors I've made. So that's the I'm sorry phrase. It's personal. Acknowledging I've created whatever pain I've caused or the errors I've made. Forgive me because I did not know I had that inside of me. That is so important. We are not triggered unless we have that same something inside of us. Forgive me, I did not know I had that inside of me. The thank you comes for allowing yourself to release and cleanse that memory. Oh, thank God. Thank you to the deep self, to the ego self that has been clinging it and sticking it to your soul. And then I love you, that inner divinity, meaning I love me. When you say I love you to the deep self, I love me, it's a righteous moment. It's a moment of truth. It's a moment of absolute forgiveness. So we join in a prayer to let go of every discord. We close our eyes and we posture the self. We softly say, and we turn to that soft inner power and we say, I am willing. I am willing to let go. And we see the tight fist of experiences. And we keep saying, I am willing, I am willing, I am willing to let go. And the palm, the hand opens to grace. You see, the hand opens to receive. It cannot receive in its clenched hook, but it opens. You open to kindness, to love, to a way that is revealed to you this day. You take a breath. I am willing to let go. I am softening to the story of what has been. I will never allow this to happen again. I stand as the spiritual warrior at the gateway, at the altar of my own heart, my precious, precious heart that experiences all that there is and guides me intuitively on the higher way, the higher path, into pure consciousness. So thank you, God, for the awakened moments where I align with my truth, where I allow grace to move and shift the stories of my experience, the stories at the table, the stories in the world right now. I stand in faith, anchored into a truth that I am the catalyst for change. As I stay steady on the path of love to transform all that has been into all that can be and to all that is. Greater healing, greater love, greater communication is unfolding right here, right now in our world. Great leaders are being brought forth, recognizing the power of their word, the power of truth to be spoken, the power of love to be revealed. There are powerful leaders already here. We are that. We are one with that divine energy. We are a community that stands in a strength and a grace that supports one another, that allows our ears to listen and our hearts to stay open, even if we disagree. Thank you, God, for finding my way here. And knowing that as I leave these halls, I enter into a divine space of potentiality and possibilities, and I am guided by that still, small voice that I beckon to follow. I beckon myself to follow with a hand that is soft and open and waving it into my being. As I settle my hand on my heart, I remember who I am. I remember who we all are. Thank you, God. Feel it. And be grateful. It is Thanksgiving. And we raise and praise one another. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you.